Hey guys, GWS here. Here to do an endorsement of President Trump in a different manner this time. This time, a more nuanced manner. We're going to be going through the top 5 reasons that you should vote for President Trump. Because at the Trump store, there just isn't time to do it. So we just got to do it like this because, standing in front of a Trump and Melania mannequin, a cardboard cutout, there's just not time. You can't just stand in a Trump store for 30 minutes while other people are buying shit. So anyhow, here's the top 5 reasons that you should be voting for President Trump. Number 1, the wall plus zero tolerance. The wall is very important because the Border Patrol is requesting a wall. Right? They've been requesting a wall for a while, and previous politicians have promised to build a wall, but they never did. They never followed through on those promises. And President Trump, for once, despite all the Democratic obstructionism, he is following through with this promise for a wall. And we need the wall because, Border Patrol says we need a wall because we need to prevent people from crossing in the open desert and getting their kids dehydrated and dying of dehydration. We need a wall for Border Patrol to allocate more resources toward where the drugs are coming in, which is through the ports of entry, sneaking them in through trucks, trying to avoid detection, etc. So we got that. And then zero tolerance. Zero tolerance is super important. Basically, what zero tolerance is this. If you cross the border illegally between ports of entry, you are going to prison. You're going to jail. Maybe not prison. You'll probably be deported. Hopefully be deported. And, we need to send that message to immigrants, especially poor ones who are trying to enter. You cannot enter this country like that. If you want asylum, you have embassies and you have ports of entry. You have multiple options to file an asylum claim. Which I'm not even too crazy about asylum, but I'd be open to something like that, at least limited asylum, maybe with some kind of limitation. I'm not exactly sure how you would write it up and statufy it, but yeah. But no, you can't cross this border illegally. Trump promised he was going to be a lot tougher on the border, and that's what he's done. He's kept his promises. He kept his promise on the wall, and he's kept his promise on zero tolerance. He's also kept his promise on the Iran and Paris deals. Now, basically, almost from day one, President Trump said that he was going to revoke the Iran deal. The Iran deal was a joke. It did not prevent Iran from getting a nuke. It did not, and it gave them everything. It gave them money that we did not owe them. They were not entitled to those frozen assets because, number one, we had an arms deal with the Shah. They overthrew the Shah. They don't all of a sudden get the rights to those arms just because they overthrow their own government. That's not how it works. Okay? And number two, Iran is a state sponsor of terror, which means that, we're not, just like Al-Qaeda when we froze their assets, when we froze the Swiss bank accounts, they didn't have a right to that money. Al-Qaeda did not ever have a right to those funds. And the same goes for Iran. Iran is like Al-Qaeda. They're a state sponsor of terror. So, no, the Iran deal was bad. And I can even go into detail on exactly how it did not prevent them from getting a nuke, but I'd be here for an hour. But basically, one thing is the delayed inspections. They had 21 days to respond to an inspection and to hide their fissile material or to mask it as being for something else, or to even have another well-hidden site that wasn't listed in the IAEA inspection list. And yeah, they could theoretically inspect anywhere, but how are they going to know about something that's not listed? It makes no sense. And there's a ton of things like that in the Iran deal that you could read, and I can go through it with you if anybody wants more specifics. So the Paris deal, dealing with climate change. Number one, the Paris deal was non-binding, so it's useless to begin with. Number two, other countries were not putting forth nearly what we were in the deal. And number three, let's just cut to the chase. Climate change is a bunch of bullshit, right? There's no evidence of any catastrophe due to climate change. There's no evidence of even net harm due to climate change. Yes, the climate's changed, and the climate's always changed. The climate's always going to change. Humans cannot stop the climate from changing. We could steer the direction it changes slightly through multiple ways, including CO2, but including other things as well. But no, there's no catastrophe due to climate change. There's nothing that the Earth has not already had thrown at it there. Okay, so number three, we got deregulation, lowering taxes. Trump has lowered more regulations than any president in history, including Ronald Reagan. And what's even more impressive about it is Ronald Reagan never really lowered that many regulations. And in fact, worst case scenario, the regulations stayed the same because there were 2 paperwork reduction acts, I believe. There's 1 or 2 that were signed by Ronald Reagan. And all it did was just reduce the amount of paperwork per regulation. It did not significantly impact the number of regulations. What Trump did was he said for every regulation, you got to eliminate 2 regulations, right? That hugely reduced the regulatory burden on this country. We went from about 90-something thousand regulations to 60,000 pages of regulations in the Federal Register. So that's a significant change. And Trump promised to do that before the election. He said we need to eliminate these burdensome regulations. Lowering taxes, same thing. Like most of the taxes lowered were on businesses, which of course Democrats, wah, 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 most of it was on the 1%, wah, wah, wah. It's like, this is what Trump said he was going to do. The ease of doing business had to be restored. And that's what President Trump has done for you, done for us. And that's what lowering taxes partially does. Right? It's not about, it was about business, especially small business. And raising the cap on the inheritance tax was hugely important because the inheritance tax is theft. It is downright theft to say your kids don't deserve the money, but the government does. That's bullshit. That is theft. That is unmitigated theft, period. There's no avoiding that. Okay, then you got number 4, tariffs, trade, and accountability. Trump tariffing Mexico prior to USMCA, which is considerably better than NAFTA. It's not the step forward a lot of people wanted, like a lot of people wanted more, but the reality is NAFTA is a significant improvement. It's the first improvement in decades in our trade relationship with Mexico and China. And of course, with China, our tariffs, which are still in place, fortunately, because we've been enriching that country and they've been sapping our growth. Right? We have shifted our supply lines to the Chinese for decades, and especially with the COVID-19 stuff, that has significantly had an impact on our security because we get a lot of stuff from China now, and that's a problem. This is a security issue. This is a worker issue because tariffs help the workers of this country. You get to keep your job. Your job doesn't get outsourced to some child slave in India or China. And we needed that. And we got improvements through tariffs and trade. And holding NATO accountable, holding China accountable, that's just been hugely important just from, first of all, Europe has increased their military budgets toward NATO, so it's helped in that respect. And just an attitude change. Like, we're not going to give everything for free anymore. The Soviet Union does not exist. Okay, so NATO, you got to pay your share. And I also like the distancing from Europe. That's important. And the halt on aid to Ukraine. That everyone likes to say, or all the dumbass libtards like to say that it's impeachable for Trump to withhold aid from Ukraine. But the reality is that Trump should have never released that aid. Like he was under no obligation whatsoever to release that aid because of national security concerns. And the fifth thing that Trump has done, these are in no particular order, by the way, but Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. And what's important about that is not necessarily moving the embassy. It's not a huge deal. But the point is, so many presidents have promised, from Carter, Reagan, both Bushes, Clinton, and Obama, all promised to move the embassy to Jerusalem. So this isn't even whether you should or should not, because all those presidents ran on doing this, and they never did it. President Trump is the first president to follow through on this promise, to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And, just a simple thing like that, like just not giving in to pressure to leave the embassy in Tel Aviv, that's a breath of fresh air for a president to keep so many promises like this. And at the same time, we don't have a resolution to every war right now, but we're in a more stable, peaceful spot. Obama left us with a complete, disgusting mess. We had ISIS, we had Assad, who was fighting us, plus the Kurds. We still had the Afghan war going on. We had the Iraqis fighting ISIS. It was just an absolute slop fest. It was not a very good situation that President Trump was left with. But Trump took this and he created a lot more stability. Like, there's a lot more stability between the Kurds, Assad, ISIS is nearly gone. Turkey and the Kurds are still kind of fighting, but they've always been fighting. But it's starting to stabilize now, because now you have Assad working with the Kurds, which are part of his country. And that's the key thing. It's like, people don't understand. It's like, Syria is a sovereign nation that is UN recognized. The Assad regime is UN recognized. We do not have a right to be there. Right? Russia is an ally of Syria. We are not an ally of Syria. Our presence was never welcome. Russia is in Syria because they were asked to be there. We have no right to be in Syria. And Trump at least created somewhat of a ceasefire regarding that. Who knows when that situation plays itself out. But at least there's stability. And we're at least getting the Taliban to, if nothing else, talk about negotiations. Talk about ending this 17-year war that Obama didn't even care to end. Right? The Obama, I might as well just call it the Obama-Bush administration, because that's what it was. The Obama-Bush administration did not want to end the war in Afghanistan because it was making them big bucks. It's like, why? Because, Obama can brag about killing Osama bin Laden, try to get election points off of that, even though he didn't do jack shit to kill Osama bin Laden. He knew where Osama bin Laden was for a long time. The killing of Osama bin Laden was basically, just for election posturing, nothing more, in 2012. We knew where that guy was for years. Literally years, we knew where Osama bin Laden was. So, basically, that's that. Like, there's a lot more things I could talk about President Trump, but the bottom line is, this is a guy who keeps more of his key promises than anybody has kept in a long time. Anybody. He is the best president since Eisenhower. I can confidently say that. Even I think Reagan was overrated personally, but Trump is the best president of this generation. He deserves a second term because of the things he's done for this country, the things he's still doing for this country. You know, even right now, Trump is a rational mind in a sea of idiots regarding the protests, regarding the fake virus, regarding all of this. But anyhow, I just want to give that endorsement. Thank you guys for listening. I'll have this on YouTube. I'll have this on Discord. Love you guys. God bless. And once again, thanks for tuning in. GWS out.